Tuesday, 12:30, and it's another beautiful day. And I hope that wherever you are in the world, it's a beautiful day for you, your family, and your loved ones. And welcome to the Mindset Michele TV show, where we hope to bring you every week an extra special guest that's sharing their incredible insights into how you can create a mindset for success for yourself. And this week, I have an extra special guest again, Dr. David Moffet. Hello, David.
Hey, hi, Michele. Nice to be here.
Fabulous to have you on the show. And for those of you that aren't aware of who David is, Dr. David, or David as he prefers to be called, is an incredible dentist who set up a wonderful dental practice and ran it successfully for many, many years, but also then decided that with his focus on the customer and systems and processes, that he would take that knowledge and that information and create the ultimate patient experience. And working with his wife and business partner, Jane, they've now transitioned and got this incredible business where they're helping not only dentists, but other businesses and people operating businesses to set up their own successful systems and patient experience programs and ways of doing processes and systems. So that I've said processes and systems a lot, haven't I? They've set up a wonderful set of systems and processes to help businesses and people be more successful. So would you like to give people a little bit more insights into you though, David, and how you came to firstly be a dentist and then from there evolve into more of that customer service focus?
Hi, Michele, and thanks for having me on the show. I really appreciate it. I went to school in Western Sydney and was considered to be quite intelligent, and so it was expected of me at my school that I would go into a medical career, either medicine or veterinary or dentistry. And I didn't receive the marks to be a doctor, but I got into dental school at university. So off I went, trying to get a transfer to become a doctor. And after 2 years, I did achieve the marks to start studying medicine, but I was 20 years old and I just wanted to get out and be in business. I wanted to own a business, and I didn't feel that I wanted to go back to school and take all those years of training to be a doctor and then be an intern before I could actually work for myself. So I finished my dental degree and worked in over a 4-year period for 2 employers, one for 1 year and then one for 3 years, and then bought my own business. So that was the start of 1987. I was 27 years old, and I owned and operated that business for 28 years. So I left it when I was 55, more than half my life in one building, which is quite scary, really. I haven't lived in a house for that long.
That's a long time.
Yeah.
And did you, even at school, did you have that fixation or fascination about working with people? Was that what originally wanted you to be a doctor?
I actually really wanted to be a radio announcer, believe it or not. But I was told I was too smart to be a radio announcer, and I should, do something in the humanities, like medical field. So that's why I went off to dentistry. I learned my customer service skills by working part-time jobs during my 5 years at university at dental school at Sydney University. I worked in a news agency in Western Sydney in Baulkham Hills, and then I worked at Castle Hill RSL for 2 years. And I learned that if I didn't give my customers good service, I didn't get good tips. And so customer service was ingrained into my being, that this is what I needed to do to make sure that, one, I had to be good at what I did, but two, I had to be likable.
Yeah, and I think that's interesting because you have got a very deep voice that would be great for radio, but it's interesting that, because you were smart, everybody thought you would be a doctor, and because of this and because of that, when people are younger, you do have so many expectations around what the life path you're going to choose is. And I really like how you recognise, at 20, which is still quite young, that you didn't want to keep studying just for the sake of becoming a doctor. You wanted to get out there and build your own business and build your own life as it is. With that in mind, I know that Jane, your wife, is also your business partner. So has that always worked that way? When you were a dentist, was she working with you as in the dental practice?
I met Jane while I was an employed dentist before I bought my practice, and we dated for 5 years, and then we got married, I think 3 years after I'd bought my dental practice. Jane was a school teacher, and so obviously she went from school teacher to mother and parent. And then when our children were old enough to find their own way home from school, I suggested that Jane come and work in the dental practice as a concierge. You know, she was drifting into, you know, P&C roles, and I said, that's wasted. Come and work for me and just schmooze my patients. You know, this is something that I knew was lacking in dentistry. You know, people would arrive, then they'd just be parked in a corner, and then they'd be dragged into a treatment room and tortured, and then out they came. And it was during that parking process that people who were quite excited about their dentistry or about what they were going to have would go, you know, into the chasm of despair, and then we'd have to try and get them out of that chasm when we treated them. So I said, if we can keep them and maintain them at this euphoric level, we're going to get a much better response from them when we treat them and we propose treatment to them. And also, if we maintain that afterwards as well, then their visit to our practice is an experience. And so that's how Jane and I started working together. So it wasn't that we worked together originally, it just happened by accident. When we left the practice, by that time, you know, I built a successful model with my team, and Jane had also morphed into being really great on delivering customer service on the telephone, as well as for patients, you know, arriving and leaving the practice. And so it was, we started two separate businesses. I started coaching dentists and she started coaching dental front offices. And then we realized that it was hard. It's very hard to compartmentalize, you know, that you can be a bad person and a good person, you know, in your mind. You can't do that. They mix, and it's the same in a dental practice. You can't say that my front office is bad, but I'm really good at being a dentist. It all overlaps. And so then we merged our two coaching businesses together to coach dental practices. But I think the kicker, and I think you're leading into this, how do we get into working with non-dental practices? Well, we knew we were doing great customer service back in 2008, 2009, but a chance meeting at a dental meeting in 2010 where I met a customer service speaker in the United States who was coming to Australia. And I saw him and I said to Jane, I remember ringing her from Brisbane and saying, we've got to go and do this guy's 4-day course. And off we went to Cleveland in 2010 to learn his method, and brought that method back and applied that method as the glue to our dental practice. And it was fun for everybody to do, and it gave us great results because it systematized the process, looking at the process from the patient's point of view. Because everything in business is often looking from the owner's point of view or the staff's point of view, and the customer has to fit into that, whereas it really should be, what are the customer's expectations and how can we exceed their expectations, and what are the steps they go through along the way? And when we looked at it that way, and we gave each step to our staff to say, well, you're working with the patient that time. You know, the dentist really only just treats the patient. He says hello, he treats, and he farewells. It takes a lot of time, but the staff have so many little interactions before and after that, and they realize how important they were. And so applying that to dentistry was a game changer for what we did, and so put us in a different league in terms of advising dental practices. But at the start of this year, or the end of last year, that company in Cleveland reached out to us because they had a gap in their customer service delivery, because they were dealing with very high-end Ritz-Carlton, Lexus, Neiman Marcus, Chick-fil-A, Starbucks, but they were missing out on the SMEs, the $5 to $50 million turnovers, and they wanted to put in a coaching model for people who had graduated from their classes and gone back to their own businesses like us, to see whether we could help back out in the fields that we like. And so for Jane and I, it's great to be able to talk to people in hospitality, in food and beverage, and in retail about the customer service principles, because they're universal. you know, they're not unique to each industry. They're universal, and you can have a bad experience in a restaurant or a retail store and be able to take those principles and apply that to your own dental business. That's what I was doing. Now I'm going to take it and flip it back, which is really exciting. So for Jane and I, it just gives us the opportunity to go full circle and be giving it back to larger organizations than just a cottage industry like dentistry. So it's exciting on both parts.
And I really hear that excitement as you're describing it, and thanks for explaining and people understanding more now that evolution. I really think you did a great job there of explaining the evolution of how did somebody that started off wanting to study to be a doctor, become a dentist, become a coach, and then build a successful global business, not about dentistry anymore, but in that SME market. And one of the things I heard, and I think it's really fabulous, is that the success came out of recognizing that was the end-to-end experience for the customer. It wasn't just the dentist being great or the concierge or the receptionist. It was each part of it being a great experience. And I actually visited my dentist the other day, and I was struck as you were talking how transactional it was. Hello to the receptionist, sit down, he does the job, and then goodbye to the receptionist and book in for 6 months' time. And it is very transactional, as opposed to what I'm hearing you describe of that experience of, well, what's your maintenance plan? What's your vision for your teeth? What's your this, what's your that? Which can be applied to, yes, it can be applied to a restaurant or any sort of hospitality or any kind of business. That's amazing.
It was after I left my practice, I went and worked for, after I'd sold it, I went and worked for a couple of practices, but at one in particular, you know, the staff would bring the patient in and then leave the patient on their own until the dentist arrived. And I thought, this is crazy. We've got somebody about to spend $4,000 on their teeth, and we can't even take 2 minutes to talk to them. You know, what are you going to do? Scrub instruments? No, you've got to talk to them. How's your day? What do you got planned for the weekend? You know, was the traffic bad? Anything, just create a conversation, because, and so the art of conversation in dentistry is really lost. Sometimes people think, even staff think, oh, they're coming to see the dentist, they're coming for what the dentist does. It's not about what the dentist does. The public perceive that dentists all do the same thing very well. That's why they're dentists. But it's how they make them feel. It's how they make them feel important. And so my best patient in my dental practice was a man called Russell, who during the 15 years that I treated him, he was a garbage man, he was a storeman, and he was a postman. So you get that profile of somebody who you would think was after a glamorous smile. But the thing that Russell loved about coming to see us was that everybody in the practice made him feel like he was the most important person that they were talking to all day. And funnily enough, after I'd left my practice at the end of 2014, I saw Russell in a Parramatta District Facebook group, and I asked him to be my friend, and he replied and said, I would never in my life have thought that you would have wanted to be my friend. And Russell and I are really great friends now, despite the fact that he follows a different football team and he votes a different way to me. We have a respect. He has a respect for what I did for him, and I have a respect for him as a person and the journey that he's gone through his life. So it's about relationships, Michelle, and relationships are important. You know, when you dine out, when you go and buy clothes, when you're furnishing a house, when you're building a house, all these things. When you're buying a car, it's about how those people make you feel and whether you trust them and whether you think they've got your best interests.
It does. And so just along those lines, what do you think success then means to you? What out of that background, that very varied and interesting background, what have you decided or come to the conclusion that success means for you?
I think it comes down to a phrase from the great Zig Ziglar, who said, if you whatever you want in life, you'll have as much of it as you want, as long as you help other people get what they want. And so it's helping other people to achieve what they want. And whether it's to achieve, you know, a predictable mouth that's not going to have things that break, a smile that lights up a room, or just a smile that gives a person confidence when they look at themselves in the mirror in the morning and say, wow, I look so much better, I feel so much better as a result of that. It's helping people in that way. And so that then comes down to retail. You know, if you're selling clothing, telling people how good they look. If you're selling furniture, you know, if you're selling them a car, cars are the best example. Why people buy mag wheels, I'll never know. You can't see them. They give you a worse ride when you're in them, but people put them on their car because it makes them look good when they're in that car. So again, and that's all part of the psyche. So helping people to feel better about themselves and to make it a win-win transaction. That's what it's got to be. If it's a win-lose transaction, I won't be in it. You know, I get people call me and say, I want to sell my dental practice. I want to build it up and sell it. And I say, what you're saying is that if you've got a bad practice, you want to tart it up and sell it to some poor schmuck, and then he's stuck with it. So that's not how I work. I help dentists build practices that they keep, not that they flip.
I really like that. And I really hear that integrity coming through. And so the show each week is about mindsets for success. And I really hear that that clarity, that integrity, and that focus on win-win, and the customer is important to you. But what sort of tips do you think you might share with viewers around how they can create that same sort of mindsets of the success for themselves? What would be your suggestions?
Well, I think a mindset is something that people can develop. It's, you know, although people do have negative thoughts, removing negative thoughts and thinking of the glass being half full rather than the glass being half empty is really, really important. But you're right. Some people are always, oh, what if this happened, or what if that happened? Whereas I was always focused on, this is going to be the result, and then working it backwards, as opposed to, you know, saying that the first step was going to be, why bother? And so it's learning that mindset. Now, you can learn that by attending courses, hearing people speak, listening to motivational tapes, reading books. Now we don't even read books, we listen to books. So filling the mind with positive thoughts allows you to do that. Remember, I came from the outskirts of Sydney. Castle Hill was the outskirts of Sydney when I grew up there. You know, it was cabbage patches and dairy farms just down the road from me. Now it's suburbia, but it wasn't the, you know, I was a Westie when I went to Sydney University. I had to have a positive mindset that I was going to achieve what I was going to achieve, and that I wasn't going to be one of the ones who dropped out and failed dental school. And so you've got to be able to focus that you can do that. And when you meet people like that, you know, I remember meeting a chap who was a greenkeeper. He was just focused on what he needed to do to build himself a successful business. And those sort of people, when you're in a conversation, we're going back to this phrase again, but the fire in their belly that's going on in their head, you know, those thoughts, they just light up a room. You just can't not be drawn to those people. So anybody can do it. You know, just look over my shoulder, those books. You just got to find the books and fill your mind with positive thoughts, and you can achieve anything. And probably the next best thing is to
I agree. I think that the starting with that little bit of research that you're saying, reading the books, checking out coaches, checking out who is doing what in what field, and then from there actually applying. And people use affirmations, people use journaling, people use all sorts of different tools to keep building that positive mindset and that positive focus. The other thing I like that you mentioned there was around the people that you surround yourself with. So you and I, for example, met in a professional speaking environment. So we're surrounding ourselves with other, you know, world-class speakers to keep refining and learning those skills for presenting. And so anybody could join that group, anybody can join any different group if they put their mind to it and apply themselves. And the third part that you mentioned there, which I really like, and I'd like you to say maybe a little bit more on, is actually believing and looking at the end of where you want to go and going, I can get there, as opposed to getting stuck at that first step, maybe that, oh, okay, it's too hard and I can't quite reach it. Because we work with a lot of, I work and my company works with a lot of people that do have trouble with that first step, and helping them to understand it's about looking at that vision and keeping that vision in mind. And then whether that first step works or not, they might have to go to a different step, but they'll eventually get there, but keeping that in mind as they work through. So how have you found when you've worked with your clients that similar sort of changing their mindset to keep focusing on where they're going, as opposed to maybe issues coming up with the first few steps?
Well, I always focus with my clients on them having a clear idea of what they want, what their end result of their business is. And I guess in terms of customer service in dentistry and customer service in regular businesses, the important thing is that focusing on that end result, and then, like you said, going back to what's the first thing that you need to put in place. You can't just run a business and then 5 years down the track say, all right, now I want to do this with it, because it's kind of like jumping in your car and not turning Siri on and then just driving for 5 minutes and then find that you're meant to have been going the other way. So clarity in the end result, but then dialing it back to saying, all right, what's the first step? And so in terms of a business, building the team around you that have that customer service vision, then train the team. Okay, don't find people who are trained, because they may not have the vision. They may just be skilled but not have the mindset. So it is about that mindset. And you mentioned it briefly in your question. It's hanging around the right people and choosing people to be your mentors. You are as smart as the 5 people that you hang around, and it's probably best not to even be the smartest in that group of 5, because you will learn. And I learned many years ago on a golf trip that at dinner, to just sit where I could hear everybody and just listen, because these people were all older and wiser than me, and I learned a lot about business and life just by being a fly on the wall sometimes. That's why we've got 2 ears and 1 mouth. We need to listen more than we speak.
That's such a good point. And the other thing that I know from when we were doing the promotion for the show today, you talk quite a lot about being the brand for your customers and positioning yourself. I'm fascinated by the fact that we're both KISS fans, and they obviously have positioned themselves as the brand for many, many years and have had that enduring success. So whether it's KISS or whether it's your business or whether it's the work that we do, how do you feel, and what tips would you give around positioning yourself as the brand?
Well, first and foremost, when you're in business, any business, what you've got to realize, what every business owner has to realize, is that out there in the population, 20 to 25% of the population don't care what you charge, because they perceive that the service or the product that you give them is exceptional value, and they don't even care what your competitors charge. So there's a pool of 20 to 25% of the population that you can just please. And I thought, that's right. The guy who used to mow my lawn when I lived in Sydney, I didn't know what my neighbour over the road was paying his guy. I just thought that my guy was giving me great value. He gave me a great looking lawn. He took photos of it and posted them on Instagram. And he kept telling me that mine was the best lawn in the Ku-ring-gai Shire. So I thought, I don't care. And if you talk to women, they're not going to change their hairdresser to save $10. They have a relationship with their nail lady that is personal, not about the nails. And it's all about that. So don't think that every customer is price conscious. And then apply the Pareto principle to that. Remember that if 20% of your efforts result in 80% of your income, focus on that 20% who can't live without your brand, and you'll get 80% of your income. Don't focus on the 80% that are going to be the whiners and the whingers back in your business. And clearly that's logical. Sometimes we in dentistry, we used to cater to these people who would whine and whinge, and they might be even upsetting our valued patients sitting there minding their own business, looking forward to their dental experience. So think a little bit logically about you can't be everything to everybody. So pick your market.
And I think that that ties nicely into something perhaps we haven't really mentioned much of yet, but I talked a lot about at the beginning, about those systems and processes. And I think that that's very true, because if you define and create the systems and processes for those 20% high value clients that bring you 80% of your business, then it's a very different to, like, as you're saying, being all things to all people. You know, that the systems of remembering birthdays and special occasions for those key clients, it's those small things that people really appreciate, because then they feel valued and remembered. Like with hairdressers and nail people, they know the stories and the history of people, and so it's a personal relationship when you go and see them again.
It is. We used to send out Christmas cards. Some of our patients said that we were the only Christmas card they ever got. But we'd send out Christmas cards and birthday cards and make people feel important, and they were important to us. It's really, in business, you want your customer to believe that you've been waiting for their arrival all day. Now, I know dentistry is by appointment, so that's really easy to prepare, but it's if you make them feel like they're an interruption, there's a good chance, as soon as you start taking customers for granted, then they leave and go elsewhere if they feel like they're being ignored. You came down to systems, and I'll just say this about systems. If McDonald's can train teenagers to sell hamburgers and create a multi-billion-dollar empire worldwide, it's all about systems. There's a reason they ask, do you want to supersize? Because a percentage of people, and it's a known percentage, will say, as a matter of fact, I would. And so dental practices run usually with no system. So it was easy for me to implement systems. And a lot of businesses do that. Most sporting teams, including under-6 soccer teams, are better managed than businesses, because they have a professional coach, they have a playbook, and they practice. 3 things that dental practices and 3 things that most businesses don't have.
Yeah. So such fascinating stuff. And so if people are wanting to get in contact with you after the show, what's the best way to reach out to you?
Well, they can find me on LinkedIn or Facebook. I was obviously an early adapter, because it's just my name, David Moffet, and I say it's MOFF, double F for French fry, and then ET, like the movie, phone home, easy to remember, Moffet. And I'm there on LinkedIn, and I'm there on Facebook, and I'm happy to connect with anyone. What you see is what you get. This is me. I don't have a private Facebook where I keep the public off. I'm a glass door, and that's the easiest way. All my websites, but you can get those off my Facebook page and also off my LinkedIn page. Fabulous.
And just then finally, if you were to go back to that young David wanting to study medicine and starting out in the world and then deciding to do dentistry instead, what advice would you now give to yourself at that age?
I'd probably give the same advice that I was given when I bought my practice from the dentist I bought it from, who was retiring. And he just said to me, he said, David, from day one, treat this business as you want it to be. So it's, he said, work the days, don't work more days and then try and cut them back. Work the days that you want it to be from day one. And so that's what I did. And it was very sound advice. It just set me up. But probably the best advice I ever got given was by a patient who said to me, he said, Doc, what's with all these options? He said, you're the guy with the white coat. Tell me what I've got to do and I'll do it. And I think that sometimes we get tied up in spreading ourselves to and confusing people. I think people just want to know what's the clear next step.
Yeah, I think that that's very good advice, especially for your younger self around we can get, in a sense, stuck with so many options and just coming to, well, what's the next clear next step? And when we were talking about working with customers and clients about going to the vision, what they really want to know, well, what is the next clear step that I've got to do to reach that vision? And it's our role to help them to do that. But I can see that we've run out of time and it just goes so quickly. But thank you so much for being on the show David.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed this.
It's been such a pleasure to have a fabulous chat and insights again. I feel so blessed to have so many different people from different areas of expertise come onto the show and share their insights into who they are and also into what they see as what skills and tools and techniques you can develop to create that successful mindset. But for now, we've run out of time again. I look forward to seeing all of my fabulous viewers next week, but thank you for tuning in today. And from my heart to your heart, be great, be fabulous, and be you.